Hello and welcome to the Tuesday Talk Show. This is Series 7, Episode 1 of Tuesday Talk Show, powered by Essential Print Services, which is my very own small business, which has been going now for 10 years, which is amazing. So I'm the presenter, I'm your show host, I'm Yvonne Gorman, like I said, owner, CEO of Essential Print Services based on Pride Park in Derby. And this series is all about business coaching, leadership, and my aim is to get as many bits of advice, top tips to help you smash 2022. Absolutely smash. And to kick us off, Series 7, Episode 1, we have the amazing Estelle Read. Hello, Estelle.
Hello, thank you for having me on.
Absolutely my pleasure. Thanks for your time today. We've only got half an hour and it is live. So to remind people listening and watching this, whether it's on live or on catch up, it's unedited, it's unscripted. So anything can happen, which is the most exciting part, which also means if you are listening to this live or watching us live, send in your comments and questions. We'd love to hear from you and give you a shout out. But we're going to dive straight into the questions. We've only got 30 minutes. So Estelle, who are you and what do you do?
What's your name, where you from? So I am an executive coach, trainer, and soon to be published author of Inner Brilliance, Out to Shine, 10 Antidotes to Imposter Syndrome, Workaholism and Stress. And I work with businesses to optimize performance, productivity, success, and well-being. And I established B in 2005, so 16 years I've been going, which is absolutely bonkers. It's gone in.
How do you feel about that?
I feel quite proud, actually.
Yeah.
Just because, you know, we're obviously in the thick of a pandemic, but I've survived maternity leave, credit crunch. I was told my business wouldn't survive maternity leave, credit crunch, a chronic illness, and now the pandemic. So yeah, I do feel really proud.
So you've had everything pretty much thrown at you and you're still here 16 years later, which I would definitely feel proud about. So Estelle, people listening and watching in today, why should they listen to you? Who do you think you are?
Who are you?
Who do you think you are?
So I was working out when I started writing my book. I've helped probably over 10,000 people. Well, not probably, I have. I've helped over 10,000 people since I set up, which, you know, when you're a speaker and a coach, you speak to big audiences, you soon start to clock up your hours. But I've worked with many local businesses, to shout out a few names that you'll know. I mean, I cut my teeth in the legal industry as a coach when I was heading up the HR team. But I've worked with Brown Jacobson, Nelson's, also Shakespeare Martineau, some other great local businesses, Hoob, PKF Smith Cooper, Fisher German, Hannells, you know, but then broader, bigger businesses like the NHS, NFU Mutual, JP Morgan, Beto Quinol.
All right, show off. God.
So, you know, so just to give you a little snapshot.
I won't ask you to name all 10,000 people that you've helped because that is just, we haven't got enough time for that this morning. So what were you doing before you started the company and what were your circumstances like? What sort of risks did you take to start your own business and take that leap of faith, which is really important for people watching this who might be thinking of starting a new business? Because people may think there's a perception that you have to have, you know, loads of money behind you or take out a massive loan. And that's not necessarily the case. So what was your circumstances like? What does that look like before you started the business?
Yeah, sure. So as I said, I was heading up an HR team for a law firm. I was getting bored. I wanted to go in one direction. They were going in another. I started heading up also a corporate training and coaching department. So started to run a mini business within a business. But they said to me, look, if you want to do this full time, you've got to earn 3 times your salary plus NI. And at the time, I was paying for all my own coach training and went on a wacky course. And they asked me the question, what would you like to be, or what would you like to do? And I thought, I want to set up my own business. But I'll be honest, I procrastinated over it for 2 years. I didn't think I could do it. I was really scared. And then one day, after a tricky meeting, a heated meeting about culture, I popped down the corridor to my boss and I said, I want to resign. And I went home, told my husband. In all fairness, my husband had said, why don't you set up your own business? I gave them 6 months notice. And so in the evening, I was running B. In the daytime, I was doing my day job. And I literally went from paid employment to paid employment. I didn't have any financial backing. And I've always kept my overheads low. So it was fairly low risk, to be honest.
But yet you procrastinated for 2 years, even though there was a low risk. There was that self-confidence required. I'm going to do it. Well, I'm going to have a notice. It was going to get over that hurdle to do it.
Yeah, it was absolutely probably one of the most scariest decisions of my life, taking that leap of faith. But the hardest part was making the decision. And I did have help from my fellow coaches to make that decision. We did all sorts of wacky things using NLP timelines and stuff like that. And it just clicked inside. And once, as I say, the hardest part was making the decision. And then once I'd made that decision, I just got busy.
Yeah, just flew. And you had the support of people at home as well, which is also a massive help if you have that. Over the past year, Estelle, what have you learned about yourself? We've had a lockdown, we've had the pandemic, you've obviously had some changes in your business perhaps. What have you learned about yourself throughout that time?
I've learned that I'm quite resilient. And I should be in the role that I do, because I help other clients and their businesses with resilience, but you never really know until you're tested. And last year I lost my dad and my father-in-law within 7 weeks of each other. That was through cancer. My mum had a stroke. When lockdown occurred, business for me literally fell off a cliff. I'd got, I was due to see 100 people for a face-to-face event. My clients love to come in the office and point in there to the coaching chair. And I'll be honest, some people have never come back. I had to work really hard to transition things online. And, like last year, when I look back, so I was running my business, I was caring for my dad, we were up north. I lived back at my mum's for a bit, which was my sister and I shared a bedroom. First time in 12 years, since we were 12, sorry. It's like little girls sharing a bed together. We were going to see my dad, we were dealing with that emotional strain. And, my business was thriving. Business actually helped to keep me sane. And, I've rebranded last year. I've had all sorts of projects going on in the background, getting my book sorted. So it is amazing, what we have capacity to achieve, yes. I think.
Definitely. It's amazing what you can do at your, even at the worst times. It's just phenomenal. We're going to dive straight into the advice that you have for people, Estelle, to actually smash 2022 for their business or for themselves. So thinking about all your clients, yes. I particularly wanted to ask this question myself. What has been the one common theme that people struggle with the most? Is there something that always comes out?
Yeah, and I've written about it. Imposter syndrome. No, to be honest, I could have written a book about people not believing in themselves, but that wouldn't have been trendy. Obviously, imposter syndrome is the trendy thing. So that was one of the things that I came up with. But in essence, I work with some amazing individuals. And I mean, really successful CEOs, directors, partners, managing directors. They're already a success. But when they get to my coaching chair, they've reached a tipping point often. And so over the last 12 months, one of the trends I've noticed is, so I refer to the stress bucket analogy. So we have a bucket. Mid-level is what we refer to as homeostasis. So when everything is in balance, we're okay. And then we trip up over the dog, we get snotty email, we have a row with a family member, And then the pandemic hits and the bucket just overflows a lot quicker. So what the pandemic has done is it's fast forwarded things for people. And to be honest, the issues are still the same. They're just coming a lot quicker. And I have never, ever had such a busy January. I've got work coming out my ears because people, these really successful people, are stressed out. And in some interesting research, 70% of us will experience imposter syndrome at some stage in our career. So in other words, not feel good enough. And one of the number one limiting strengths, so when Capfinity did a survey through their personality profiling, one of the lowest strengths was self-belief, which is shocking, isn't it? Really shocking. And you think it's shocking, but also there's a great opportunity there because we can enhance our personal belief, the stuff that we can do, which I'll probably come on to in a bit.
When you said 70% of us will experience imposter syndrome at some point, I thought that was quite low. I thought that'd be much higher.
Yeah.
And I just imagine being a person who would never, I experience imposter syndrome probably on a weekly, almost daily basis. But to be someone who never experiences that, I mean, what on earth would that life feel like?
Yeah.
Like, God, is that a better thing? Is that a worse thing? Do I want to be that person? You know, does imposter syndrome help me with my ambition and to strive? That's just, that's mind blowing.
You're absolutely right. It does. There's a connection with high performance and imposter syndrome. The difference is that if that's overdone, or as I say, the bucket overflows, then that's when it needs to get in check. And I totally cheat with clients. I use something called havening. So I work as a traditional coach, understanding strategies that can help them go from A to B. But I got frustrated because people would come to session and they'd not done anything over the last month. And that's where our inner stuff, our limiting beliefs, behaviours, emotions get in the way of outer results. So, yeah, I tend to use havening just to cheat and create that automatic behaviour, belief and emotion change.
I'm aware of havening. I've been to a workshop before. I know people who practice it regularly. Very briefly, can you just explain to people watching and listening back in the office or at home what havening is, please?
Yeah, sure. It was designed for people with trauma. Now, in my office, I deal with big traumas. Big traumas are things like abuse, that type of thing, loss of a parent when you're growing up, but also little traumas. So little traumas can be you're in the classroom, age 5, you put your hand up and you got a question wrong. Out of that event grew a limiting belief that you
nightmare. My worst nightmare. Worst nightmare.
It is one of the most popular limiting beliefs. I get things wrong. So then people go on a journey to prove they get things right. And it's that over-proving that leads to stress, workaholism, etc., etc. So all we do is we go back to, I listen to the client's language and I'll say something like, "Can you have got something wrong?" And we track back and we go back to, typically it's age 0 to 7, but we can push it out to age 0 to 11. And we go to the root cause memory. Now, it's a bit like, the reason we do that, if you had a beautiful lawn and you've got a dandelion that popped up, if you snap the head off, the dandelion will recur. So we could get rid of present day events, but it wouldn't work. We have to go back to childhood to go to root cause. The way that it works is you rub your hands, which sounds bonkers, or you can rub shoulders to elbows, or you can rub your face. And it was designed by a guy called Ron Rudin, who incidentally has written the endorsement in my book. So he's been a big part of the book. And he designed it so that when you rub your hands, you rub your shoulder to elbow or your face, you produce serotonin, delta waves, and something called calcineurin. This is where it gets a bit techie. Imagine that's where the memory is stored. That's your neural pathway. As you think about an event, some receptors come out. The receptors are what produce the feeling. The feeling drives the behavior. Havening the calcineurin gets into the receptors and they become what's referred to as depotentiated. So they retract and they permanently retract, so that the exec just slots back into the workplace, not being triggered. And if they're not triggered, they're not producing the behaviour, and that's why it's cheating.
Well, this is why I love the Tuesday Talk Show, because here I am thinking we're just going to have a little chat about business coaching. And then all of a sudden, we're talking about root causes, dandelions, putting your hands up at school. I love it. Absolutely love it. We have a couple of people checking in with us today. So I want to say hello and good morning to Maria Hanson, MB from Me Indeed Charity. Good morning, Maria.
Morning, Maria.
Estelle, hello. Fiona Coulson's with us this morning as well. Hello, Fiona. Going to catch up with what we say later on, but she's very, very excited to hear what we have to say. So thanks for checking in. Like I said, this is live, unscripted, unedited. We can go any tangent we like, as we have just done. So if you want to send your comments and questions in, we would love to hear from you. So let's say you're talking to an established business owner, Estelle. What one gem, what one piece of advice would you give them, and why?
Never take your own mental and physical well-being for granted, because if you are the business, if things go wrong, and I'm talking from first-hand experience, takes one to know one. I ended up working way too hard, which is why I've written about imposter syndrome, workaholism, and I ended up with ME. It was at a time when we had the credit crunch. I'd just had a baby, and ME really damages your energy and an ability to function. And if you don't take care of your physical and mental well-being, then who's going to take care of your business? So always make time for yourself. Typical things are have work time boundaries, because when you run a business, there's always something you can do, isn't there, Yvonne?
Yes, there's always something to keep you busy.
So being really clear about, whether it's slapping your laptop lid down, shutting the office door, having a working hours target. So my aim is to finish at 5 every night, and stick to it. But then make sure outside of that, you are doing things that, keep you well.
Absolutely. When I first started my business, Estelle, in the first sort of 18 months, I was going through this huge amount of guilt taking any time off whatsoever. I didn't know, I wasn't expecting to feel like that. Every time at the weekend, spending time with my husband, I just kept thinking of work, thinking I should be doing something for work, to the point where I had to have some counselling sessions to give me some techniques. So when I felt like that, I could try and overcome it. And it took a long time, but I got there in the end to actually have time off and not feel guilty. So like, what on earth is that all about? Yeah, that was very unexpected. But like you say, taking care of myself and recognising something wasn't quite right and doing something about it is the important thing. Don't just put up with it.
No, and just on that point, I work with some amazing people, men and women, and I have had broken men over the pandemic, in tears, in bits. So, you're absolutely right. Recognise it. Don't leave it too late before taking action.
Absolutely. So top few tips then, Estelle, to help people with their year ahead, either with themselves or their business. What can you give us? What gems can you give us?
I went a bit mental when you asked this question.
Oh, so gosh.
No, I know.
Go.
So, first thing, get clear on your ideal client, and then make sure that all your messages are in line with that. When the pandemic hit the other year, I was trying to think, in 2020, when I went on this hideous 40-day boot camp, but it was one of the best things I did. In that I was getting really clear about who do I work with, how do I help them, what's my message, and align every bit of communication and product and service to that message. Keep your overheads and manage cash flow. Keep your overheads low. So we were talking about office, the home office, weren't we? I have always worked at home. But there were people around me who are no longer in business that were like, I've got an office, I've got a VA, and you've got to be ready to deal with things like the credit crunch, things like the pandemic. So I always keep an eye on.
Estelle, I mean, I don't know what your experience is, but quite a few of those people who say, I've got the office, I've got the VA, they also have an ego.
Yes. No, that's true. No, yeah. It's true. It's true. Time is your most precious. Number 3, time is your most precious asset. Mm-hmm. Always question when I'm saying yes to something, what am I saying no to? So, yeah, of course we can go for that coffee. Right, okay, well, what are you saying no to? I'm saying no to a project I could be working on in my business, a personal wellbeing habit. You're pushing that gym routine back. You're not getting tea with the kids.
What about today? What about this half an hour of Tuesday Talk Show? What have you said yes to me and the Tuesday Talk Show? So what have you said no to be here?
A 2-hour coaching session. But I thought it was worth it. So ordinarily, one of the best, it was kind of business changing things for me in lockdown was adopting Calendly. So I guarantee my work slots through Calendly, and then I do admin outside other days. So Tuesday is coaching time. If you'd have done a Wednesday talk show, that would have been better for me, but I thought it was worth it.
Yay! I'm glad you thought it was worth it too.
Yeah, no. Do you want any more tips? I've got.
Go for it. Yeah, we've got a bit more. Go for it.
So when you set up your own business, you can get into, I don't charge, and I was exactly there. I found it really difficult. And I can remember in the early days, a guy saying to me, well, I could get it cheaper from so-and-so. And I said, oh, okay. I said, well, maybe you should go to so-and-so. And he said, yeah, but they're crap. And I said, well, you get what you pay for. And the thing is, if you're selling your expertise, that has taken years to develop all of those shortcuts. So know your worth and know your value.
Absolutely. Could not agree more on that one, for sure.
And then the final one is allow yourself to fail. If you're not failing, you're not moving forward, but don't let it define you. Do I cock up? Yeah, I do. I had a cock up last year. And, I learned a lot from that. And it didn't all go to waste. There were learnings that came out, and it's going to take my business to the next level. So allow yourself, they say in classes, don't they, at school, fail every day, first attempt in learning.
Not at my school, they didn't.
It's modern day schooling now.
I turned out all right, I think. I think so.
Yeah.
So what's your biggest business challenge right now? Perhaps people watching this or listening in can help you. What's your biggest challenge?
That was a really good question, Yvonne, and it made me think. And I think at the moment, obviously I've been flashing my book. I am papping my pants about this book launch. I don't mind admitting. I've managed to secure a book launch with Waterstones in Derby. Yay! So that hopefully will be happening on the 25th of March. I've got my very good friend and also author. She's called Ros Watkins. She's going to be helping me out with it. But I'll be honest, I don't really know what I'm doing. I need contacts in either PR or, local press to get the whole. I'm doing stuff on social media, of course I am. But
that only goes so far, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Media only works if people read it, and with people just scrolling by, very easily missed. And also the flip side of that, sometimes I think, gosh, no one sees my posts. Then people will say, Yvonne, I see you everywhere on social media. I'm like, well, no one. What do you mean? I don't think people do, and then people do. So it's a really tricky one. When is the book launch?
It's the 25th of March this year.
Oh, okay.
But I know what you mean, Yvonne, because I have secret watchers. Do you? Oh, I saw it. I really like da-da-da-da. Oh, really? Okay. So you just don't know.
You just don't know.
Yeah.
Maria has come back to us, Estelle, to say that she didn't have that sort of advice in her school either. She was schooled by nuns in the 1960s.
Oh,
So
wow.
very, very different era there, Maria.
It is, yeah. Yeah.
Estelle, we've got just a few minutes left. I want to just go back to what we were talking about earlier about imposter syndrome and people not believing in themselves. Why is that? I mean, I know it's a really huge question, but why don't we believe in ourselves?
It's, it is all the small events. I remember years ago, I was in a local park and this father was encouraging his son to ride a bike. And you could see, if anyone who's taught the child to ride a bike, it can be a frustrating process.
Yeah.
And he said, "Why can't you ride your bike like your sister?" Right?
Oh, no.
And on the one hand, I felt for the parent because I thought, I hear your frustration, mate. But equally, those events get imprinted age 0 to 7, and it makes people feel like they're not enough, they're not good enough. I mean, I am, I'm a terrible procrastinator sometimes. I procrastinated over writing my book for 10 years. That is shocking. And it was because I'd written my first chapter, I shared it with 3 people, significant people in my life, and one person red ringed it. And I felt like I wasn't good enough. And at that point, I thought, I can't do this. And human nature, we are programmed to look for the negative because it keeps us safe, it keeps us alive. It's an outdated program. And once I realized this pattern was in play and I did my own work on it, because I'd completely excluded all the lovely comments that I'd got from the other 2 people, like, wow, it's amazing. I can't wait to read the next chapter. All I could focus on was the red rings.
Yeah.
So I put it off. And that's how I ended up with, the coach needs a coach. I ended up with a book coach. And it's recognizing when we need help, because we can't always see what's getting in our own way. But as I say, childhood has a lot to answer for it.
Absolutely, Estelle. And so you've touched on that then. So I am going to ask the question. So what advice do you give to others that you should be taking yourself?
Good question. I'm fiercely independent.
Okay.
Fiercely independent, which is great because I feel like I can, if I want to do something, I can do it. Yeah. But also it's a strength that's overdone. And I've really had to, one of my development areas over the last few years has been around asking for help and recognizing when I need help. But also, like, I love anything tangible and specific. So I've said, I'm going to contradict myself. I've said, keep your overheads low. But also what I'm learning to do is to recognize, actually, my time would be better spent doing X, Y, and Z in my business and farming that out to somebody who has the skill, the talent, and spending in those areas. So I get help with my bookkeeping, with my podcasting. We're talking about what a nightmare that is. With, designing documents, all that type of thing. I farm that stuff out. So recognizing when you need help and being okay with getting help.
And as you know, Estelle, if you try and do those things like the bookkeeping, like the editing of the podcast, that could take you twice as long, 3 times as long to do it than paying someone to do it. And in that time you've just saved, you can earn more money.
Exactly.
It's a difficult one to get your head around until you start doing it and you still feel the benefit yourself. So that's a really good piece of advice. We have flown by. It's 29 minutes into a 30-minute show, and it's absolutely fantastic to chat with you today, Estelle. Thank you so much for your valuable time. Where can people find you, and where can people find your book, most importantly, as well?
Sure. They can pre-order my book online at Amazon.
Pre-order.
I know. Inner Brilliance, How to Shine, 10 Antidotes to Imposter Syndrome, Stress and Workaholism. And they can find me across pretty much all. So Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and it's Estelle, as you can see on screen, at AT and then B, spelt with 3 E's, B. So all my accounts are Estelle at B.
You're on all platforms. Are you on TikTok?
No, oh no, I'm not. I'm not a
Nor
TikToker. I've not progressed that far.
not
But I
TikTok
do.
Here. No, thank you.
I do have a podcast as well called Leader Insider Secrets, and we get people to bear all. They share what I am privileged to hear in these 4 walls.
Oh, that sounds good. I'm going to have to subscribe to that. That sounds like my cup of tea for sure. We're going to have to wrap up there, Estelle. But as I wrap up, I want you to think about your final thought. That could be something that we've spoken about today, or maybe a favourite quote of yours. So I'm just going to wrap up and let you think about that. Okay. The Tuesday Talk Show is powered by Essential Print Services with your show host, my very good self, Yvonne Gorman. Press the subscribe button and the bell icon to be notified of future episodes. And if you've enjoyed this episode, which I know I have, there are plenty more in the back catalogue on the Tuesday Talk Show YouTube channel. Again, press the subscribe button. If you want to chat to me or Estelle about anything we've spoken about today, please get in touch. We would love to hear from you, whether you're watching this live or on catch up. Thank you so much for your time. I'm so privileged and proud to have you join us today. So Estelle, over to you for your final thought, please.
Cool. There's always something you can do. Don't be a victim of your circumstance. Be the captain of your ship.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a great one, Estelle. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for watching.
Okay.
Thank you for listening. And we'll see you next time for episode 2 of Series 7. See you later.
Bye. Bye.